Today is June 24th, 2012, and we are interviewing Virgil Jansen at Quincy, Illinois. Mr. Jansen was born June 29th. He will be 91 years old. My name is Cheryl Walker, and I will be interviewing you. Mr. Jansen, could you state for the record what war and branch of service you were in?
In World War II,
Army.
and I was
In the Army.
in the Army. I was a
Corporal.
corporal, and I started out in infantry, and started out in the infantry, and after I got a shot, Army shot,
Medical shot.
a medical shot. After I got a medical shot, I went. They gave me yellow jaundice, and from there I went to the hospital in England.
But you were on the front line for a while first.
Oh yeah.
And you were a scout on the front line for a while first.
Yes, it started the fighting part. I was a scout on the front line, and moved out. When we moved out, I moved out number one man toward the enemy. And once the very first time we moved, no, the second time we moved, I was the lead scout, heading in the dark at midnight, and they had to take off through there. And just as soon as I started walking, a guy shot at me with a machine gun. Just a stream. A German used what they call tracers. These bullets are, you can see them flying through the air. They got a little flare of them. And I could see that flares coming, and I dropped on the ground. And I laid there a little bit, and I didn't have any. I had a rifle, but behind me, somebody had a machine gun, and he saw it. And he shot over top of me, and he shot the guy that was shooting me. The guy that was shooting me, he was using a machine gun. He shot him, and I know he was dead because he went, ah! So I got up and walked again. And that was the closest I ever got. And then we took off and walked all night. And coming daylight, we got into a village. Now, the Germans thought we would walk down a road. We walked through the timbers because this and there wasn't that road. And we walked into this town, and they were coming in behind them and scared them to death. Some of the guys in our outfit started shooting. They shot several of them, but some of them, and everybody in the town run and jumped to trucks and left. It was good. So it was pretty. As soon as they got seen us coming in the back side of the town cleared out real quick. So we spent the rest of the night there. A lot of GIs had been held there because they left their billfolds and stuff laying on the floor, and they caught them. But we run the Germans out. And come daylight, we got up and started moving again. And they sent me out, me and another guy, to be lookouts in a village ahead. And our officer, or the sergeant, took us out there. Now he said, there's a place you can stay here now and wait for him. And we'll go to the rest of the town. There's going to be the other people. And me and this guy got down in this foxhole. Somebody dug a foxhole, and there was water in it, but there was some boot. We had boots on, so we got down in there and squatted. Wasn't there a little while. Pretty soon I said, we're surrounded. He said, what are you talking about? Well, I said, if you see out there in that tree, them trees ahead of us, there's people smoking cigarettes out there. They're supposed to be Americans out there. Now, if you look back here in this church steeple, it looks like a church steeple. I said, oh, what's that? I said, that's them flashing lights. Oh, he said, yeah, that's just flashing lights. No. I said, that's Morse code. And I said, I said, what do you know? He said, well, I said, I learned Morse code in order to tell before I went in the Army. And I said, but he said, what is it saying? I said, they're talking German. I don't know what's Morse code. I said, I don't know what they're saying, but they're there. They're behind us and they're in front of us. And about midnight, the sergeant come out, come on, get out of here. And I told my buddy shortly after we got in there. He said, we get out and run. I said, where are we going? Germans behind us and Germans in front of us. Where are we going to run? Well, the sergeant finally found that out, come up there, told us to get out. And by the time we crawled out of there on our belly, these guys was coming up in there, and there's a lunchroom up there. The Germans was coming up there to eat. That's close I ever went. So we got out of there, and they got back to the company. Then they moved out again. Of course, me and that guy, we got a little time off before we had to take off again. Hell for open the front door. Awful, awful.
Where'd you go after that?
But right on, we moved out again as a company. But we didn't. I was a scout. The scout goes out ahead of everybody. I didn't after that for a while. Somebody else. There's other scouts in the outfit, and I can't remember exactly. I got. I don't even remember at all where I went. But we just pulled out of that place entirely. The whole darn company that was up in there with us, we all pulled out of there because somebody had told them that this was open country. It wasn't. We were right in with the Germans. And it's kind of, well, I had some old other places. One place I went into a town, me and another guy, and I told the other guy, I said, let's get out of here. Why? I said, there's Germans in that house. And I said, what do you mean they're Germans? He said, the Germans is all way off. I said, you're in that house. Let's get out of here. And we did. There was Germans in the house. We finally traced somebody in there, a group of them, got the Germans out. Too many times too close.
Where, can you tell me all the places you went?
I got places. Well, I fought in Metz, France. Was the first place. I think that was. Yeah, Metz, France. Was where the. Yeah, I fought in the Fontainebleau.
Fought here too.
Courcelles. When I first got to the front, I fought at Courcelles.
Courcelles.
Yeah. I fought here, and that's Metz.
And you fought here at the, whatever this is called, Fort,
Jean d'Arc.
okay.
Yeah, Jean d'Arc Fort. Now that was, we started.
That would be in November
Uh-huh.
of 45?
I don't know.
No, 44, November 44.
I remember the fort, and they had already circled Metz, the fort, and they were trying to get out of there. My very first encounter, I got up there, that's where I started, right here at Metz, because when I started there, there was several of us got in there, and we went into this fort there at Metz, and the captain of that outfit that was there told us, he said, well, just as soon as it gets dark, he said, we want that, wait a minute now, we have closed the fort, the gap around the fort, so that there's a lot of people going to slip out of there tonight, trying to get on back with the rest of the Germans. So he said, you guys go out there and watch that road. Me and another guy. So we went out there, started to watch that road. And at midnight, right at midnight, a German captain come down the road, and he was carrying his rifle at the ready. Yes, he's carrying his rifle. He's carrying a pistol in his, whatever you call it, and he had a sword or a knife, large knife, and he come walking down that road. Well, they were hobnail boots. A hobnail boots has a head about that big around, and it's round. They gave me one time to at a place. I tried to walk in, and I couldn't walk on concrete. Tall, it was like skating. But that was Germans had them on their boots, and he had them boots walking in that gravel, and I could hear him coming. So I was behind it. It was raining, blowing rain, and lightning, and cold, and I was on the side as it come out of mess. I was over here on this side, on that road, and they're waiting for him to come out. Well, here he come down the road, and before I even seen him, I was standing there with my rifle, and I had it parting up as he walked by. And just as he walked by, I stuck my rifle in his ribs. So that was getting pretty close. And he throwed up his hands, handed his rifle down. He said, "Kriege fertig, gehen heim, my Frau." Well, I couldn't talk their language, but I know what he said. The war was over. He was going home.
To his wife.
Yeah. And so by that time, now the thing of it was, I had down, he come from this side. Down here, my buddy that was out there with me, he was down there in the road ditch waiting. And the German walked past him, and he must have been asleep because he didn't even know it. And then he showed up about the time I was making some noise. Then he come up there, and I told him, I said, "Well, you just take him on into the town." I said, "I'll hold the fort." I said, see, if you're going to be asleep, well, I'm going to have her stay here. And she took him in there, and coming out daylight, I went in too. And when I got there was a little kid, just about that time, just going on. And there was a guy standing there, GI, and he said, "This little kid don't like you." I said, "What's the matter with him?" And I said, "What's he hollering about?" Well, he was talking. I forget the language he was talking now. I think he was talking. I wasn't French or German. I don't know what it was. A little kid, I said, "What's the matter with him?" Well, he said that you should have killed that man. You should have killed that man. He was in charge of these kids that they brought from other countries, and they had them out working in the gardens and stuff. Little kid wasn't but about that big. He had them working out in the gardens. And he said, at night, if that little kid said, at night, any little kid that got outdoors, he would shoot them. He said he shot several kids because they got outdoors at night. Well, I said, "Tell him I'm sorry, but I didn't know about that." It was quite the deal. And that was my first night on the front line. It's hitting it pretty quick. And then I went on from there. From Metz. Then we moved out. I wasn't there. Let's see, I was up there about a month, I guess, on the front. Then the Army come around and gave me a shot for, I don't know what it's for.
A tetanus or something.
Some part of, and it is stick a needle in you.
The man in front of you had hepatitis.
Stick it in the alcohol, and then give it to the next guy. Well,
the guy in front of you knew he had hepatitis.
The guy in front of me had something. So about 3 days later, I was headed for the hospital. They gave me yellow jaundice.
But you also had frozen feet.
Huh?
You had frozen feet.
Oh, I had frozen feet long before that, yeah.
And you had pinched nerves from running for 3 hours with a 100-pound pack on your back.
Yeah.
And your back.
Yeah.
And your nerves, of course, were shot after all those people shooting at you.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I wasn't the only guy that shot at me. There's a whole lot of them. They'd shoot, and they make their guns that made more noise than ours, and they had them tracers. And you'd see a spraying of them bullets. They didn't just shoot a bullet to go like that. There'd be a bunch of bullets coming flying to you. You didn't want to live too long up there. You couldn't. But I guess that was where I started meeting the Germans at Metz, France.
Is General Collins, is he under Patton?
Yeah.
So one general was under another general? It says General Collins here.
No, I don't know who General Collins was.
You talk about him a lot. So if you were under General Collins, you wouldn't have been under, wasn't Patton a general also?
Well, Patton was bigger up.
Okay,
Yeah, Collins was under Patton.
okay.
This guy here would have been down our outfit. But Patton, he had an army.
Well, all of you were in his army.
Yeah, well, yeah. Patton had, I don't know how many of them. We followed, later me and another guy followed Patton. When Patton got killed, we was following him up a road in a Jeep. Things had kind of quieted down on the front line, and he was back behind. And we was going down the road. Now, I don't know where it was at when he was at there. Now, Fontainebleau, I was there, but didn't do much fighting there.
No. Okay, you need to talk about the time that they were shooting at you and you had that 100-pound backpack. That was when they decided, they gave the orders, Eisenhower, is that correct? Wanted to know how soon you could make this loop and go behind somebody.
Yeah.
And whoever the general was said they could do it. Patton said we can do it in 2 days. We can move everybody.
Yeah.
Where was that at here on this map? It's the Luxembourg finger that went up.
Luxembourg.
Okay, so you were moving up there. Where were the Germans at?
Right next to us.
Right next to you. But you were moving up there. Were other people moving all different sides to get there?
Yeah. They like that. They want to hit a place like Consular. We'd be coming here, and they'd be coming here, and they'd be coming here.
Okay, so they
Coming into the town.
so that's where they moved you up.
Yeah.
And you had 2 days to get up there.
Yeah.
Is that where you had to run up the hill? Where did you run up the hill for 3 hours with the 100-pound pack on your back? You were running.
I never remember doing, but I don't remember where I was at.
And they were shooting at you because you guys were going to step off to the side and rest a little. And they started shooting, and that's when you decided you had more energy than you thought. So you could run.
We'd sit down to rest because we just couldn't go anymore until the bullets started coming at us. And I found out I had a lot more to go. I got up and run.
For 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. Till I see no more Germans.
Were they chasing you?
A lot of the time they didn't know we were there. No, they weren't chasing us or they'd have shot at us.
But they were shooting at you. Somebody was shooting at you when you ran that 3 hours.
Yeah.
Somebody was somewhere high up.
Oh, yeah.
And could
But
see you.
They get up on the mountain, like as a mountain area. They get up on the mountain, they'd shoot down to kind of keep shooting around in the area where you're at. And if they hear anything, you sit there and listen, and you hear anything moving, you just take your gun and shoot. If you've got an automatic like they had, you just spray that area down there. And so you had to get up, and whenever they sprayed the area, as soon as they got done spraying, well, then you moved through there and went someplace else. Because if they sprayed that, they ain't going to do it again.
Here we go. During the night, artillery and bombing raid was made on the fort across the town, from which our position was clearly visible. The Germans on here could train their guns on us, but didn't probably because we were too close to Germans on our hill. They bombarded us. They finally gave up. Is there another person out here? Wait. You never very clearly explained how you saw that huge company of Germans in front of you. That was right here at Luxembourg, right before you got ill, right? You were out on a scout, you and the other guy, and you have excellent night vision. You saw a whole company of Germans going through a valley in front of you.
Yeah.
Where was that at? Was that here at the finger,
Yes,
what they call the finger?
And see, I started Paris.
No, you started down here somewhere.
It must have had to be in the Luxembourg area, I think. I remember walking.
Here.
I was walking.
Here, you started here on December 26th was the battle that day, left here. And it says Ben Burdorf.
And that's,
The last day you were on the front. So
Right.
around that time is when you saw that company in front of you, right?
yeah.
Right, okay. So
We was walking, not in front of me, we was walking in among them.
no, you were scout and you two were out front
Oh, at that time, yeah.
and you saw a whole company go in front of you.
Yeah.
They were surrounding you. You were going to be dead.
Yeah,
You went back
that's
and,
right.
and told the captain or lieutenant,
Uh-huh.
and he gave you a topographical map, and he showed you exactly where you were,
Uh-huh.
and you showed him which valley,
Uh-huh.
and then they brought in planes and whatever they do, and just
Well,
cleaned up the valley
yeah,
that was in front of you.
planes, when planes come in, they have things they can drop off and just before they hit the ground, why they explode and just throw shells in all directions.
And they said afterwards there was 2 people alive after
Yeah.
the American planes came in.
Uh-huh.
But the other guy didn't see him. They
Uh-huh.
were both scouts. The other guy didn't even see the guys going through there in the dark. Dad could see their cigarettes.
That
And
was
so-
one thing I watched for at night, cigarette glow.
Well, they trained you when you were they trained you for reconnaissance.
Yeah.
Like the CIA reconnaissance when he was in training, whatever that's called, at Fort Leonard Wood and down in Texas.
Yeah,
And that was one of the things they took you out at night, and you had to be someplace where there were no lights for a half hour.
yeah. Then we'd have
Then somebody would light a cigarette 2 miles away.
Yeah, if you light a cigarette, if you had to see somebody light a cigarette, it would hurt your eye, whole sight for a half an hour. Anytime there was any, so you had to be sure you wasn't looking at any lights. And then when you did see light, you knew it was somebody with Germans.
But you could see it 2 miles away. It was what they were trying to train you, is
Yeah.
that you have to be in the dark, total darkness.
Yeah,
Then you can see lights that far away. As long as you haven't had any other lights around you, then you can focus on that. So,
but I could, I remember seeing lights in wood. And so I'd tell the guy who's in charge, and I saw this and that, and he'd send a couple guys to over like this. To where that light was, and there was always some Germans down in there someplace. And hear a little banging going on after that. It's one hell of a way to live.
You received a bronze medal. What did you receive that bronze medal for?
They didn't even tell me, did they?
um,
I didn't get it until I was out of the Army.
your
Meritorious achievement in ground operations against the enemy
on,
in the European theater operations.
but it doesn't say what day. This is when it was given to you in 1953, but it was during the,
Ardennes Alsace climate campaign.
would that have been that night that you saw that?
Well, I did that several times. But I'd see things.
But I don't know which one, why they turned, which one they turned it in for. So at that time, you were private,
Yeah.
second class infantry. It says dated January 8th, 1945. So that would have been about that time is when you received it, whatever you did at that time, because it wasn't very long after that, then you went to
I went to
the hospital after that.
Yeah, I was up on, when was that?
It says January 8th, 1945.
Yeah. Because I was up on the front on Christmas Day.
Right, and so,
I would hit some rough days after that.
war is not a game.
Do you have anything else to tell us?
Probably lots of it we can't remember. As far as war, I had a lot I had done after the war. Yeah, I went to, after I got out of the hospital, it was kind of a strange, they didn't know what to do. When I got in the hospital, the doctor told me, he said, you got 5 things wrong with you, and we don't have anything for any of it. You got to cure yourself. So I laid in the hospital bed for 3 months.
No, 89 days.
Yeah, that's right, 89 days. If you're in a
Because-
hospital,
90 days.
90 days, the rule says they had to go home.
So they let him out one day early.
So the 5 doctors got around there that day and around my bed, and they keep just talking back and forth, but I couldn't hear what they're saying. And that's when they decided to turn me out of the hospital instead of turning me home.
So
And I went
that's-
out of the hospital.
Then they started doing them in different machine shops in different places.
Yeah, then they put me to work doing things. It wasn't any labor to them.
But your liver was still swollen.
Yeah, and I see the first place they dumped me was just, I call it a catch-all, just a place. And I had to sleep in a tent for a week, done nothing, and then somebody found out I was a machinist. I made that mistake. I telling somebody that I had already worked in machine shops enough to gain a title of machinist before I went in the Army. So they found out I was a machinist. So they put me to work in the machine shop. When I put me in a machine shop, first day there, the guy in charge was a lieutenant. He come up to me and she told me what to do and how to do it. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. I said, I was a machinist in the Army, in the civilian life. I can do what you want done. I cannot do it the way you told me. But I said, I'll do it and fix it just like you want it. He said, you do it your way. But that word got around that whole machine shop. All
More
these,
people want to talk.
Huh?
There's more people out there.
Are you interviewing somebody? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, she is.
what do you want?
You need your signature on here
Oh.
to let them put this in their library, honey. There's other people out there. They didn't make the announcements downstairs that you were up here. And we had all this ready.
Come on.
What else do you need to talk about? This one? Sorry.
There's 2 of us.
Yeah, well, they want your signature on lots of things. You were the only person that got a gift when you were on the front line on Christmas Day.
Yeah,
Remember that?
yeah.
Right here,
I can't remember.
someplace, if applicable. Did you sign somewhere on this one? Okay. They brought in the mail on Christmas Day, and you were on the front line. And you were the only person that got a package from Mom,
Yeah.
and it had what in it?
Oh, she had all kind of, there's Christmas candy, and I don't remember some gloves, and I don't remember a
Cookies.
whole big package, a whole company. Nobody got anything but me.
On Christmas, and it was packed in popcorn.
Yeah.
But the popcorn was stale, but you guys ate it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But
She used popcorn
for packing instead of peanuts.
And of course, I didn't give the rest of the outfit, didn't get none of it. That was because I knew she'd find out that they'd get it anyway. She had a fit, but I had to hide that. And then we did light a bonfire and stand around and sing
Christmas carols.
Christmas carol.
And you could see the Germans.
The Germans during that day, there was flights going over to the Germans and back and forth going on. We knew the Germans was right out there, but there was no firing, nothing going on Christmas Day. Either side, I never heard a bullet.
But you knew where they were and they saw you there.
Yeah.
And you stood around.
Next day, things caught hell again.
Okay.
Day after Christmas, all was back in war.
Need to be Christmas every day.
Yeah. And not a soul got anything for me. And I give every bit of it to me.
While you were there, your brother was killed in a
Yeah,
car wreck. And the Red Cross was supposed to notify you.
yeah.
And
Red-
3 months after he died, you kept getting letters from home saying
Something about it.
they sold your cows.
Yeah.
They sold your brother's goats.
And I finally,
You wrote your dad and said, "What is going on? I don't understand."
and my brother was dead back there for 3 months already.
So
They sold all of my cows. I was trying to start the dairy business. I bought little calves and put them on my cow. And then when they'd get doing pretty good myself, I better buy another calf. Put on. I had quite a few calves and stuff there, and I had supplies of feed stuff for them to take care of. But when my brother died, they got rid of all my cows for me, and I started on back over.
because no one was there.
Uh-huh.
But it took 3 months for you to find that out.
Yeah. And my wife-to-be went right down to the Red Cross and asked him how she could notify me about him being dead. We'll take care of it. Just tell me, I'll tell them, give me your names and all that, and I'll take care of it. And the Red Cross never did do a damn thing. And I kept writing back to her, and pretty soon I said, "What happened? I don't understand." And I explained it to her.
No, you explained it to your dad. You wrote your dad.
Yeah. And then finally they wrote a letter to me and told me that he's been dead, buried. Made it different.
They didn't send people back home for that anymore back then.
Somebody said you could get sent home. The Army never paid any attention to it. So one brother's gone, it's your turn.
Mr. Jansen, would you like to show us the things that you've brought?
That I brought. Here?
Yes.
Sure.
Talk about your book.
Uh,
It's written, but it's not typed, and it's not proofread.
I got the story of it, of everything that I can think of in here.
107 pages. And you wrote this in 1981.
And what is that, Mr. Jansen? Can you show us?
What is all of this about?
Some of this may go back ahead of that.
No, this starts when you went to the Army.
Okay.
I was inducted into the Army,
Okay.
April 29th, and it tells every camp you were in,
Mm-hmm.
what it was like, what you did, all your reconnaissance, everything, all your things that you learned, where you were shipped out. It tells all about your trip overseas and how you guys weren't fed, but the officers or somebody had all of this food, and you guys, and then one time you were given World War I rations,
Yeah.
and during World War II, and they all threw them away and didn't eat.
Yeah, I remember now. I wrote quite a book of it, didn't I?
Even in 1981, you remembered the names of all the guys that were in your 590th, whatever they're called, group, company, all of their names. You have everything here, even, what is that?
Raymond Smith.
No, what is these numbers?
Oh, when you're in the Army, you get a number.
You have all of their numbers and what they did and everything.
Yeah.
So you were in there, what, 5 months, 27 days? And it said you were in a foreign service 1 year, 7 months, and 13 days.
Yeah. And Decoration was a Victory Medal in Europe.
That's what you have here?
Yeah.
Turn that so they can see it. They're taking a picture of it right now. There, Dad. You can read this, and I'll hold it up. You have
The Victory Medal of Europe, European Theater Medal with 2 stars. That was for Ordnance and Rhineland. 3 overseas bars, Army of Occupation Medal, Germany, Good Conduct Medal, Combat Infantry Badge, Bronze Star after I was discharged, listed as 4 months basic training,
7 months.
7 months rifleman, and 12 months machinist.
Then you also brought this book called The 2nd Infantry Regiment that someone ordered for you. And it has, your picture's not in it, your name is in it, but it has all the maps.
I was in the 2nd Regiment, 1st Battalion. There's a bunch of guys there, but I ain't in them.
No, you're not in the pictures. But it tells all the battles that were fought by the 2nd Regiment.
War preparation.
Right.
And it tells you,
That's northern France.
I said France.
But you weren't in northern France, were you? You were in Germany.
I don't know what that was. Sure.
That says England,
Maybe
Ireland,
up to
Normandy.
Normandy was a coastal outfit.
But I think we've gone through here and your picture's not in here.
I don't think so.
Rhineland,
No.
there's where you were, Rhineland,
Yeah.
which is part of Germany. There's Metz right there.
Metz, yeah, I spent some time
It
in
shows
Metz.
the memory of the city, how it's all tore up and bombed. And you weren't company one, you were company K, no.
I don't know. Really?
There's the encirclement of Metz
Uh-huh.
that you were part of that battle.
Yeah. We encircled Metz.
There.
Here, I fought here when I first got on the front. That is
Right there. No, it's right here. Courcelles.
Courcelles. Courcelles.
And that's part of the encirclement of Metz, was where they were trying to go around and the whole city. Right?
And also I fought at Fort Jean d'Arc. That's part of Metz deal.
There. You were here too. You fought here.
Yeah.
You fought there.
The last day on the front was at Berndorf. Here's where I was. I started earlier. Consdorf was where I was on Christmas Day with the bonfire and singing. Got the package from Rosemary. And we started here and left on December the 26th. And we went up this way
To Burdock.
to Berndorf.
And that's where you got sick.
Yeah, and that's when I went on to the war.
Did you have nightmares about this after you got home?
Oh, God, yes. For several years.
What did you do on the 4th of July for many, 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 many years?
4th of July, we always get in a car and take out way out in the country where there was hardly no houses. We stay around out in the car.
Why?
To get away from that noise.
Why? Why did that noise bother you?
Oh my, yes. You know, especially if you didn't see them doing it. If you're sitting there in a car and there'd be noise off at a distance or something. So we always
You always thought somebody was shooting at you.
yeah, we got away from the towns. Towns, you know, on 4th of July had a lot of fireworks and stuff. We always stayed out in the country. Well, we lived in the country, but we got out way off in the hills. Spent the day at 4th of July. Get away from that noise. You know, when you're up there and your noise is going off here and then there's noise going off there. And you like to run, but you don't know which way to go.
What about the time that you jumped into a tree had fallen over, and when it took the roots and it went over,
One of the first times,
a German was shooting at you?
yeah, well, they were using artillery. And artillery is, to understand artillery, a piece of artillery would come over and explode. And if they know how to do it, it'll explode over where you're at. And they get one where they see how far away are you, and they know which bullet to use, and they shoot that bullet over there, and it just goes in an artillery piece. And then when it gets over there, it explodes like that. Well, now coming out of that, right next to it, there's be a lot of fatal pieces. If you get hit by them, they'll get you. But if you're a distance away, you get what they call shrapnel. The stuff that come out of that bullet over here, and it falls kind of like hail. And I got hit by that shrapnel lots and lots of times. I never got over in this, but I got in this shrapnel lots of times. And the very first time our outfit got into the war, that we actually got into the war, we lost half the company. Now, not all dead. Not all dead.
But injured.
Injured. A lot of it. There was some, probably 10, 15 of the outfit was dead. But there's guys that I was talking to the day before laying around there dead now. But there were some of them that was.
But, okay, so they were shooting at you, and you were just out there on bare ground. What did you do to save yourself?
That's when the tree you're talking about, as soon as they started shelling, I've seen it before, pine trees, when they come up out of the ground, they'll come up out of the ground like this, and just naturally fall down that way, dying. They'll turn up, but as they come up out of the ground, they bring a huge amount of dirt with them.
With the root.
With the roots, and just as soon as that first shrapnel shell was shot, I dived in a hole, and it left it in here.
By that tree.
Yeah, I'm behind that pile of roots up there and down here in this place, and I could feel shrapnel hitting me. Nothing ever hurt me. We didn't lose actually too many lives. I think 6 or 8 out of our company. An awful lot of them though was hurt by the shrapnel. I don't know how many.
Before we go, you need to tell the story about how they sent you out to the front line. How they were driving and parked alongside the road and told you guys to walk through that field over there and you'd find a company to join. Was that correct?
Yeah.
How many of you got off the truck to go join that group? Just 2 of you?
I think so.
And that was how they sent you off to fight to be in that company?
Yeah.
They pulled off and said somewhere over in there,
Uh-huh.
through that forest, you're going to find some more of your company.
Yeah.
And that's when you came from the States. Yeah. And they sent you that way.
That's the way I joined the company.
But weren't you afraid that they were going to shoot you come walking in like that they could be
I
Germans?
hadn't learned that to be afraid at that time yet. Not until you once get over where the bullets start flying. And you hear them whistling by you. You only need 1 or 2 of them fly past you, and they'll scare you for life.
Did you go to the veterans hospitals after you got home? Here in the States?
Yeah, I went to several. I was in several hospitals.
Did they do anything for you?
Some of them got in there and checked me all over. You know, first thing I done, I had I had frozen feet. My feet froze when I was in the army, and they checked me over and said, "Yeah, they ain't your frozen feet." When I got to the
When you got here to the States?
States, they said not. They'd been treating me for frozen feet over there. And then I got to the hospital, checked over, I don't know, had the liver and what all they checked. Couldn't find nothing wrong with anything. It took quite, gosh, I don't know, 5, 6 years before they finally admitted the things was wrong.
No, they just admitted it in 2008. And you've been going to the hospital since 1946, veterans hospitals, on and off, for nerves, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And finally, in 2008, they finally admitted that your hearing, that your feet, your back was all their fault.
And I got a rash. I got a rash on my skin, and they sent me to a doctor in Quincy.
The veterans have proved it and sent you to a doctor in Quincy, that's correct.
Yeah,
And what did he do for you?
He treated this was skin infection I had or whatever it was with X-ray rays. Then I later found out
About 20 years ago, you ended up with
cancer,
prostate cancer.
and that was they told me then that was due to them X-ray treatments I
Because
had.
that's what they did for it then, was
And
just
so they
giving
had to take out
X-ray
my
treatment after
prostate.
X-ray treatment.
And
And he
they
gave you
claimed
cancer.
they didn't have nothing to do with it. They didn't take very good care of me.
So finally, how did you finally get them to listen to you so you could get some medicine from them?
I had my daughter took after it.
We wrote letters to representatives, senators,
Yeah,
and they kept putting him off. Being as old as he is, they figured he'd die, and they wouldn't have to deal with him. Then we sent a letter to President Obama
yeah.
To,
Obama was when he got things moving. He wasn't a president yet.
Yes, he was.
Huh?
He was the president, but we sent it to the veteran advocate at his office,
Oh,
which is Skelton. At that time, it was Skelton from Missouri. Senator Skelton was. Within 2 weeks, he got action. But the people at Chicago didn't even know it for 2 or 3 months. They were still sending him letters saying, "We haven't forgotten you,"
they don't do nothing.
but he was already getting his medicine and everything. It's like the left hand didn't know what the right hand was. It's like he went in to ask him when he was going to go home, and they said, "Well, you're not even in our company, right?" There he was working all this time, and they said, "You're over in some other company, right?"
Yeah, what now?
And you didn't even know that because that's where you were getting your paycheck and your rations.
Yeah, now you're backing up to the one I was on the front.
No, they
Yeah.
lost you in Austria when you wanted to go home.
Yeah, that's back up.
Yes, I'm sorry, you're correct.
I
You're
was
back
in
on.
Austria, and now what I've done in Austria, the captain. First thing I done I was in Germany. They put me in there and in that machine shop.
Yeah, we've already told him that.
Yeah.
In
Well,
Steyr.
the next job I done after that, that company was going home, and they had points,
Uh-huh.
and had they give me all of my points, I would have went home. They didn't give them to me. I said I didn't have them coming. I got those points after I got discharged, when it was no good, and I went back to from there. I went over to this place, and they wanted somebody to help move the stuff from one airport to another.
That was the supply line.
Well, it's supplies for the airports, from one airport of the air to another. And they had a place over here.
But you told that story already. Let's tell about when you went to ask to go home. What happened? Where did you go to ask to go home?
Well,
After you'd been over there for several months. You've already told that story.
okay. What did I do before I go home?
How did you get home?
Well,
You went in and asked, when is it your turn to go home?
Yeah.
And what did he tell you? That you're not even in their company.
Yeah,
So he sent you to another company.
yeah,
And they said that they had been looking for you.
yeah.
They didn't know where you were.
Well, the other company was one I had been in, but somehow my papers never got transferred to the one I was in at this time. But he said, well, she said, well, Scott, we don't know where you was. And so I went up to where that other company was, and they said, well, you're supposed to go home tomorrow morning. And
So
I
you
did.
Mr. Jansen, I appreciate your story, and I appreciate the time that you spent. And I thank you for serving our country and for giving me this interview.
Can you get